Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hawk Blogger, and it is that time, folks. It is that day where the Seahawks minicamp is over, and we are entering the true dead zone of the NFL offseason. There will be no meaningful news other than potentially things off the field until July 26th when the team comes back for training camp. So this is going to be wandering the desert together for 6 weeks or so as we talk about the Seahawks while the Seahawks are really not doing much. But we do have the benefit of a number of bits of news to go over today. And because we're not in a rush, because we don't need to jam everything into one day, we're going to take it nice and easy today. We'll have probably a shorter show today, and we'll get into all of the sound that we've got from yesterday. There's so much stuff from yesterday that we're going to take some of those into tomorrow and Saturday and so forth. So we will not go through every single press conference from yesterday, but we will go over what we heard from Mike Macdonald and some of the news from the last day of minicamp. And do want to say good morning to all the YouTube members. I see Hawks fan Matt Man. We will probably have a chance if there are folks that are club or suite level YouTube members and you have questions today. Feel free to post those. I will do my best to answer those at the end of the show. So if you have some questions that you'd like to hear me answer, feel free to post those. They can be any questions. They can be Seahawks questions. They can be nonsensical questions. I'll do my best regardless of what the question is. And it is a gorgeous Thursday morning here. So also, I'm hoping that folks have plans to sit out on a deck, barbecue, take a walk, whatever you need to do. Take a walking one-on-one, take a walking meeting, get out of the office, enjoy the reason that we all live, those of us that do live in the Northwest. These are the days that make it all worth it. So get out there and enjoy it. Some interesting stuff came for the Seahawks and some surprises came for the Seahawks. And I want to go through some of those as we talk about what was the second day of Seahawks mandatory minicamp. And by the sound of it, it was, to borrow a Julio Rodriguez ism, it was a no-fly zone. A lot of turnovers created by the defense. We'll talk about each one of those and some implications from that. And since we're talking about it now, before we get into it, congratulations to the Mariners pulling off another walk-off victory against one of the worst teams in baseball. But the Mariners moved to 10 games over 500. And what a bummer that the Dodgers had the tying run thrown out at the plate against the Rangers as the guy ran through a stop sign. So he would have been at third base, and unfortunately he got tagged out at home, ended that game. And so the Rangers, instead of being, I think, 7.5 games back, are 6.5 games back. But we'll see what happens today. I'm hoping that the Mariners actually pitch Emerson Hancock today. They're supposed to be pitching Luis Castillo. I'd love to see them pitch Emerson Hancock, try to steal a win here, push back the rotation so that Castillo, Kirby, and Gilbert all pitch against the Rangers when they come to town in a day or so. But yeah, big series, big chance for the Mariners to extend their lead in the AL West. And also kind of cool that the Astros lost again. I don't, that's a weird, talented team that just continues to lose. And I think they are maybe 8.5 games back at this point, which is wild. Which is wild. All right. So let's get back to the Seahawks and get back to the news of the day. Let's start here. So We will hear from Mike Macdonald about this, but he chose to, with the coaches, cancel the final day of Seahawks minicamp. And I think this is of note for a few reasons. I don't think that's this huge deal. Jeff Simmons was probably giving me a little shit last night about it, but I I think it's meaningful. I think it's worth talking about because there are only 3 mandatory days in the whole offseason ahead of training camp, and these were them. And he gave away 1/3 of those days. Uh, that's interesting. Just isolate that decision for a second. We have heard from Ryan Grubb as recently as last week that, he wished they had even more days because they're trying to get things installed. He's talking about the offensive line trying to come together. Anthony Bradford hasn't been out there. We'll talk about that. That's changed in a second. But this team is the coaches are getting to know each other. We heard DK talk about Frisman Jackson, receivers coach, learning the offense. We've got the quarterbacks learning the offense. PJ Walker, who just came on as a third quarterback, just getting his first reps. You've got all sorts of things, all sides of the ball, learning together, learning each other. And so to willingly give one of those days back is just an interesting decision, coaching wise, regardless. There are coaches from many generations, including this one, that would never, ever in a million years consider giving back a day of practice, especially in an NFL offseason where it is increasingly trying to favor players. The Players Association has negotiated a lot of changes and more time off. And so coaches are pretty protective of that time. So I do think, I do think it's meaningful for a coaching staff to decide on their own to give back a day, especially a new coaching staff. I also think it's interesting because we're learning about Mike Macdonald, and Mike Macdonald he's pretty intense. He's pretty serious. He's not a jerk. I don't get that sense at all, but he is all about the business and about grinds and getting the work done. And so this shows a little bit of a different side to him. And I don't think, like, we'll hear his words as he talks about it. I don't think this was him trying to, I don't know, prove that he's a nice guy or he can be laid back too. I don't think there was any posing going on here. I think he genuinely was like, no, we did our work. We're in a great place, and we're going to give the guys a day off. And I think there's some other reasons as well. I'll talk about that in a second, but I think it's just good to kind of get to know your coach a little bit. And I think there's a good sign in that regard. It is worth noting that the Seahawks got an extra week of practice because they had new coaches. This was over early OTAs. But again, those were not required. Those were not mandatory. And so not all guys were there. I just do think it's worth noting that a lot of these guys got a third of their required days off. So it is, I think, meaningful. And the other piece that I kind of think factored in here that's not just a truly altruistic, let's give the guys a day off because they did their work. But I think that you'll hear Mike Macdonald even mention it when I play the sound later. It's like getting an extra day off. Sorry, it's staying healthy. So, every day that they practice, they increase the odds that someone's going to get hurt. And so they're weighing that against progress made in installing things, and we'll come back to that in just a second. All right. Next bit of news and notes. First of all, look at that lovely view. I mean, Christian Haynes. That is not what I meant to do. Sorry, folks. Christian Haynes looking plump and lovely in that 64. I still don't like that number for him, but that's fine. Hopefully he'll make it a number worth remembering. But we'll hear Mike Macdonald talk about Christian Haynes here in just a bit. But some injury updates. Anthony Bradford, speaking of guards, was back on the field. He was doing individual drills. He did not do team drills, and there's kind of worked him back in a little bit, but good sign nonetheless. I don't think there was any real concern about his ankle, but he had missed all of OTAs, and this was the first time he'd gotten on the field. George Fant did not practice. He took what they called load management, like a rest day, veteran day. And so that meant that Raekwon O'Neal was the starter again at right tackle. Raekwon O'Neal, McClendon Curtis, these are two names just to keep an eye on, as they are also young players entering their second seasons in practice squad, going from practice squad to the Seahawks 53 last year. And guys that are now, due to a lot of factors, but they are getting first team reps on the right side. We'll see how that looks mid-camp, but that's what it is right now. We also had Jaxon Smith-Njigba leave yesterday with a shoulder issue. From all reports, it looks like it's a minor, that they were just playing it safe. So hopefully that's the case. JSN, as much as he has had some injury issues throughout college and had some early last year, he did play every game last year. So that's good, but we definitely want to keep that guy healthy. And that has not always been the case throughout his career. So let's hope that he is able to continue to accelerate into training camp and the regular season once the guys get back on the field in late July. Laviska Shenault, who we've heard barely anything about, which may or may not be a good thing for that guy. The wide receiver left the practice early with what Mike Macdonald called a small toe injury. So nothing serious, but again, another reason why, when they're exploring whether or not to end camp early, you get a couple guys back, you lose a couple guys, and they probably just want to make sure that they take it easy as they head into summer. Now, this was the story of the day. 5 picks for the defense, and they went all over the place. Michael Jackson had a pick 6 off of Sam Howell. He jumped a screen pass. So he read it, jumped it, took it the other way. So throwing into the flat is always a dangerous thing. And even though it seems like such a simple play, it's so close and so easy. If you get it wrong and the defense knows what you're doing, that is about the easiest pick 6 you can get. I thought it was really good to hear about Tyrese Knight getting a pick. I believe this is his second, but I think he had maybe a pass breakup before. But in any event, this one came where he was showing blitz and then backed off and was able to pick off a pass. I think that is Mike Macdonald's defense in a nutshell, putting linebackers, safeties, corners in position to be in places that the quarterbacks pre-snap are not expecting them to be. And I'm going to take every single bit of good news that I can about Tyrese Knight, because this linebacker room has been worrisome, as we've talked about. And so good to see about Tyrese Knight getting an interception. Rayshawn Jenkins had one on a ball that was tipped. I want to double check. Yeah, Patrick O'Connell. So Patrick O'Connell deserves a shout as well. The other linebacker that we talk about, starting next to John Radigan, he tipped a ball and Rayshawn Jenkins dove to pick it off. So great to see Rayshawn Jenkins contributing as well as Patrick O'Connell. Reek Woolen had one on a deep pass when he was defending DK Metcalf. It sounds like, based on some conversation, that there's a little bit of miscommunication between DK and the quarterbacks on that play. But nonetheless, Reek Woolen was there and did pick it off. Artie Burns had an interception. And then Devon Witherspoon had an interception, but I think he was ruled just out of bounds by the officials. So again, the secondary really, and not just the secondary, but the back seven played pretty well. And I was giving Griff Sturgeon, see Mike spin move some crap on Twitter. He always is so much more positive in our crossover pods that we do. But you see his Twitter feed. It is, I think some of it's tongue in cheek, but it's also very oh, what's that Winnie the Pooh character? Eeyore. Griff, if you're listening, you've been giving off Eeyore vibes on your Twitter feed. He's like, oh, we're gonna have one of the worst back sevens, and this. And I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the safeties are going to be much better than people realize. I think we're going to actually really enjoy the safety room, and I think that we're also going to enjoy watching these linebackers when they're on the field. I see this comment in chat that this video is too long. I've seen this from a couple of folks. I don't know how quickly they're expecting these things to go, but we're 15 minutes in. So hopefully that is someone just being silly, but otherwise, we're going to keep going here. Some information on Dre Jones. We've talked about Dre, and we've talked about that he has been playing multiple positions and that the team is looking for him to play multiple positions. This was video from Brady Henderson showing Draymond Jones working with the outside linebackers. And I thought that it was worth noting that from, again, position drill wise, Dre Jones was working mostly with the outside linebackers, but he was also working with the edge rushers on pass rush. So there's Boye Mafe. Here comes Derek Hall. And so, Draymond Jones, there's a third video, which I'm not going to post here, but it is from Bob Condata of Draymond Jones working with the defensive tackles. So Draymond Jones is getting all the work in. And if you did not see the news, just broke this morning from Jason Fitzgerald at Over the Cap that the Seahawks have restructured Draymond Jones' contract, and that restructure has opened up $7.4 million in cap space for the Seahawks this year. And I thought that was worth noting for a bunch of reasons. The Seahawks now have $8.5 million in cap space. What Jason said about this, I'll go into some more details about the restructure that happened, but he said that this should give Seattle the breathing room now to function for the rest of summer and into the regular season. Keep in mind, they need money for practice squad. They need money for injured reserve. They need money potentially if they want to add any players throughout the season for veteran minimums or as injury replacements. So you generally need $5-6 million to do that. So the Seahawks are not sitting here swimming in cap space. I think it's also worth noting that this could possibly be a precursor to making enough space to sign somebody to the roster that's out there on the free agent market. I continue to wonder if a Jamal Adams move is incoming. That's the guy they have talked about the most. But, if he hasn't signed elsewhere, depending on how that goes, maybe Jamal Adams is back for camp and is part of this linebacker room. So I think that is something to monitor. I want to go into a little bit more detail on this restructure to give you guys a little bit more information. And so what they did is they basically converted 9.875, so 9.9 million of Draymond Jones's 2024 salary into a signing bonus. So they lowered his base salary for this year, and that lowered his cap charge to 10.77 million this year, and it increased his cap charge by 2.5 million for 2025. They also added 2 void years to the contract, which is something that the Seahawks have not done that much of. They have done it in recent years, but it's not something they've done a lot of. So as we're learning about this new cap guy that they brought in, we're going to kind of figure out how he does certain things. So one of the aspects or side effects of this change is that while it created, a decent amount of cap space this year, it did put the Seahawks more over the cap space next year. And I think I've had questions about whether Draymond Jones was going to see the last year of his deal in 2025. As it stands now, it would cost the Seahawks $14 million in dead money if they cut him next year versus only $11.5 million in cap savings. So you would be paying more to cut him from a cap perspective than you would save, which from my point of view increases the odds that he is going to remain on the Seahawks next year. So that is the Draymond Jones news. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but there you go. Next. And this is the last bit here before I get into some sound from Mike Macdonald. There were 3 tryout players in camp. This is Robbie Chosen, the wide receiver, and the other 2 guys, Kalen Horton, another wide receiver, and Blake Lynch. I tweeted about Blake Lynch yesterday, and this was something that Bob Condata mentioned and was a new name, but he is a linebacker, so he gets extra attention given the state of that linebacker room. And the thing that's interesting to note about Blake Lynch is, he played 1 snap last year. He didn't really have anything last year. He did play 218 snaps for the Minnesota Vikings in 2021, which I found interesting. He had a 64.6 grade overall in that 2021 season. He did not miss a tackle. And so his tackling grade was 87.4. And I've made note that there seems to be a premium on tackling ability in some of the players that they are acquiring, which is fine by me. Who knows? This is, again, we're analyzing a guy at the very end of the roster that actually isn't even on the roster. He's a tryout player, apparently. So we'll see. And then he also had 2 sacks in that. He had 2 sacks in 8 pass rush snaps. So that was an 85.2 pass rush grade. He also had an interception and a pass breakup in 85 coverage snaps. So he had a 68.7 coverage grade. So some interesting things about Blake Lynch. He's, I don't know that we should expect him to be the answer, but that is also kind of interesting. Just a guy to pay attention to. We'll see if he gets added to the roster as we continue to monitor what's going on. There is some breaking news that I will just talk about for a second. This is not related to the Seahawks, but the Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons, are being docked a 5th-round pick in 2025 due to the league's anti-tampering policy with Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, and Charlie Warner. The team's being fined $250,000, and GM Terry Fontenot is being fined $50,000. So that's interesting news. And just coming off, this is from Tom Pelissaro. This is breaking news. It seems Basically, he says the violations are considered logistical and administrative, such as making travel arrangements after players agreed to terms and did not involve contact prior to the negotiating window. So it sounds like from their perspective, the league did not deem this to be an egregious offense, but still worth noting that the Falcons are going to lose a 5th round pick next year as a result of these infractions. All right. Last thing I want to do before I get to your questions. Again, if you are a YouTube club level or suite level member and you have a question, put it in chat. If you've already put it in chat, I will scroll back and try to find them. But I will try to get to your questions right after we go over some Mike Macdonald sound. So we're going to hear from the head coach here and some of the things that came out of the last day of minicamp. We're going to start off. And again, if you're new here, this sound is as loud as I can make it. So if you want it to be louder, I would suggest joining as a patron, patreon.com/hawkblogger. Immediately following this show, I will be putting the audio version out of the podcast with boosted audio, equalized audio, sweetened audio, all the audio goodness. And you can get access to it if you're a patron, patreon.com/hawkblogger. So that is your answer. It's also ad free, bonus. So enjoy that. All right. Here is Mike Macdonald opening the press conference, talking about how things went and his decision to give the team a day off. Let me know if for whatever reason you're not able to hear this.
We were scheduled for practice tomorrow, but we told the guys that, we're not going to practice, that we're done for our spring program. Just couldn't be happier with the effort. That's what I was just telling them, just the effort, the intent, the energy, the attitude, all the things we're asking them to do. They responded every day, and just really excited about where we're at. And we've been going at it here. We had the extra week being the new staff and everything. So felt like it was an opportunity to get out of here healthy and have a great offseason.
That was Mike Macdonald talking about the decision to get out of here early. And you just hear he's very happy with where they are. He also heard him saying, get out of here healthy. They're gonna take advantage of that. And that he just communicated with the team that he really is loving the effort he's seeing. He's loving the intent. Good to hear. Not necessarily surprising, but good to hear. And I don't think we should take for granted that was definitely going to be the case. And the fact that it was is only good news. Next clip here from Mike Macdonald is about JSN. He was asked what his thoughts are of JSN, and he had prefaced this, but saying that this is, hey, this is a camp without contact, and so all these other caveats. But setting that aside, here's what he had to say about JSN.
He's a guy that we can focus our offense around, along with other guys. I mean, Tyler Lockett is still a great player. DK Metcalf, phenomenal player. The runners, Noah Fant. I mean, but he's definitely going to be a massive piece of what we're trying to do offensively.
So that was Mike Macdonald talking about Jaxon Smith-Njigba. He obviously took the opportunity to shout out other players, Tyler Lockett being the first name. Cool to hear. And yeah, I mean, I think it would be really interesting if Tyler Lockett has a resurgence this year. I mean, I have been assuming he is in regression, that he took a meaningful step back last year. He did not look as explosive. His numbers were certainly not as explosive. But who knows? Under Ryan Grubb, under this new regime, with the extra attention that JSN may demand, with what is going on with DK Metcalf and his capabilities to command a lot of attention, who knows? Maybe Tyler Lockett really goes beyond expectation this year. But you heard Mike Macdonald talk about the fact that JSN is a guy that can be the focus of this offense. And that's going to be something to watch for sure. And we'll see how the rest of the players react if that's the case. I think we'll be interesting to watch that once we find out. All right. Next bit here is Mike Macdonald talking about the cornerback room and how they've played so far as a secondary. And so here's him talking about the cornerbacks.
Well, I think you've seen their confidence grow every day, and that just comes with understanding what we're asking to do and understanding the scheme and how it fits and how it all plays together. Got a good part of the defense in now for quite a while, so just getting those extra reps every day, you can feel that they have a lot of confidence in what they're doing. So it's cool to see. They're having some fun out there.
Yeah, so I think kind of measured praise for the cornerback room. And, it feels like they're getting more confidence, but I didn't think there was anything particularly glowing in that. It just was, he's matter of fact about it, and he's good with what's going on with the corners. He then starts to talk about the reaction from the players when they heard that they were getting the day off, and it was kind of funny because you could see that maybe word got out a little bit earlier than he anticipated.
I felt like the word spread a little bit from the guys. I had told our leadership council that that's what we were thinking about doing. So I think we might have had a leak in the locker room, but it sounded like they were excited.
So that was him talking about the fact that the leadership council already formed is had heard and they talked about it, and that this was something that he thinks got out beforehand. So yeah, he had a big smile on his face when he was talking about it. And also interesting, we had Maura Dooley on the show last night. She did an interview with Mike Morris that I'm guessing is airing today on Brock and Salk, and that he hadn't heard about this leadership council. So, that's something that's still developing, but kind of cool. The same idea. And so this next sound that I wanted to play for you guys was they asked Mike Macdonald if he felt like things have gone as he hoped. Is there any surprises or things that he didn't expect so far in the offseason mini camps?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just it's hard to again, I've said this before, but it's hard to have a 100,000 day plan where you just get every hour just etched in stones. Like, you got to be flexible, you got to be able to move and shake. So I think if you go in with that mindset, when things pop up, it's kind of like you're expecting the unexpected to a certain extent. So I wouldn't say just roll with the punches, but apply the principle of what we're trying to achieve. But yeah, look, I'm really excited about where we're at. But again, I just told the guys, like, we haven't stopped anybody yet. We haven't scored any touchdowns yet, and nor should we. It's not the time for that. But I feel really good on the foundation that we've been able to build, and excited. I'm be good to get a couple days break, but I'm excited to start camp. It's a great time of year.
Again, with Mike Macdonald, I think you're hearing a lot of goodness about one, that he is just really secure in his perspective on what he wants to see. There's a confidence that you get in more veteran coaches, and I think it's great to hear in his voice and his plan for what's going on here. And also that, he's not getting ahead of, hey, like, they made a bunch of plays, that means we're playing great. You'll hear him talk about that a little bit later, but he's really focused on, are they executing? And I thought there's a really good sound I'm going to play about that in a little bit. But his intent is just really, are guys doing right? Is the process right? And process before results every time. And he is so very clearly a process focused coach. I think that's going to pay off in the long run for sure. Next question was anything that he's learned as a head coach.
And just take the long view on things. I mean, it's we got a lot of great people that are working in this building. It's not just me. We got a lot of talent, a lot of great people that want to help the team, and just if we deploy all those people, the way that we want, then I think we can create something really special.
Nothing particularly insightful there, but I like the fact that he is taking the opportunity to share the spotlight, and he is thinking about how he's going to take advantage of all the great people that are in the building from a coaching and other perspective to kind of get them where they're looking for. So, this next comment is really, it's kind of interesting, him talking about what he's going to do between now and training camp. So a little bit of a insight into Mike Macdonald's life when he's not out there on the field.
Well, camp's pretty much planned. We'll make some final tweaks and that sort of thing. There's a lot of studies that I haven't been able to get to, like on tape personally, that I want to get to, when I have a little more time on my hands. But yeah, at some point you do have to get away. So I got a quick trip planned with my wife, but family will be in town. It'll just be a good time to get away, get back into a routine outside of the building. And everyone should take that mentality. Get away, get refreshed, be with your loved ones, be safe, of course. But it's an opportune time. We haven't really had a break yet since maybe last year. So be good.
So you heard from Macdonald, there is film study that he wants to do. And I get excited about that when I hear it. I mean, I know Pete Carroll was doing stuff like that too. But I just have this sense that when Mike Macdonald is going off and studying film that he's had on his mind, that he's going to come away with a new insight, a new innovation, a new wrinkle, a new way to prep for Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. I think he's very intentional about everything he does. I think that he gets a lot out of every little drop of the day or a drop of effort that he puts in. And so I love that he's I can imagine that's going to be his chilling out time, is watching some film that he's had in mind for a while. Also great to hear his family's coming out, his probably extended family's coming out, and that he's going to get a chance to kind of take a breath. I mean, this has been a whirlwind for him after getting eliminated in the playoffs, to being hired here, to the offseason and the draft, to early OTAs, all the way through now. This is his first chance to just kind of like breathe. And I'm glad that he sounds like he's going to take advantage of that, and that he and his wife have a little trip planned. I think all that's good news, and happy for the coach about that. Next comment here is about Anthony Bradford being back on the field and where he kind of fits in to the plans on the offensive line.
He's right there. Just good to see him out there. Haven't missed a little bit of time there throughout some of the OTAs, but he's right in the mix. We got a great competition, especially on the right side of the line, and he's right there. He's got a great opportunity to go earn himself a job.
So that's Macdonald talking about Anthony Bradford, and we'll see. He was back out doing individual drills, not team drills today. I'm really curious. I don't think anyone can say for sure what the depth chart's going to look like at right guard come camp. And Anthony Bradford was kind of a guy I expected to be penciled in with the ones, since he has the most starting experience at that position on the team, but maybe not. And you're going to hear a little bit in a second. I'm going to play for you the next clip, which is about Christian Haynes. And I think the offensive line depth chart is going to change potentially significantly once pads come on and you can actually see how these guys do in terms of resetting the line of scrimmage. Here's Mike Macdonald talking about his rookie right guard, Christian Haynes.
He's doing some good things. I mean, I think Christian's game is when pads are on, when he's moving people and can get into the next level, things like that. So right now, I wouldn't say it's hard to feel the offensive line, pushing the pile and moving the line of scrimmage. So I think that's more his game. So hopefully we see that when pads come on come camp time.
So as I've told you before, Mike Macdonald is pretty easy to read. And this was his I need to think of something positive to say face. I don't know if it's because he has anything bad to say about Christian Haynes. I think it was more a matter of I can't tell you really how any of the offensive linemen look until they're actually in pads and being asked to make real blocks and reestablish a line of scrimmage and push people around. But, there was that kind of comment of like, hopefully this shows up when the pads come on. Maybe there's some little concern, but I don't think so. I just think this is a simple thing of, you know, this is not the time to evaluate offensive linemen. It's not a great time to do it. So we'll learn more in camp, but we've heard very little about Christian Haynes. So I thought it was worth hearing that. I doubt you're going to be able to hear this, but I'm going to try to play it. Mike Macdonald got interrupted by Devon Witherspoon, and he had this to say about the defense's day. This is Devon Witherspoon. You're going to have to listen real carefully to hear this.
Corrected.
Yeah, this tell them that we got on offense.
That was Devon Witherspoon say, just tell them that we got on the offense's asses today. And
there's no footage during team periods. Sorry, guys. That's coming from me. Hey, you can blame it on me. There's no got to keep it under wraps, man.
So Mike Macdonald playing around with Devon Witherspoon saying, hey, there's no actual video footage of, you getting on the offense's ass. So I thought that was pretty funny. He did at one point talk about the energy of Devon Witherspoon. And I want to play that for you, what he brings to the team from an energy perspective.
It's easy. It's great. It's great. I told him today I couldn't believe that he was the smartest football player of all time, and it's only in his second year in the NFL. He's got an answer for everything. But no, he's. I mean, it's like, hey, man, be yourself. Like, that's who he is. We love him. He's a great player already in this league. We're just really excited about him. But again, he's all those guys are great, man. Energy's right where we want it.
Loving the energy from Devon Witherspoon, tossing it back and forth with him about thinking that he already knows everything. And then this other question about Witherspoon about his football IQ was also, you could just see, I mean, Mike Macdonald loves this guy. And here's his comment about Devon Witherspoon's football IQ.
Is he going to hear this or not? No, he's it's high. It's high for a second year guy to be able to take something from the meeting, register it quickly. The questions he asks are really spot on. Like, they're really no BS type questions. Like, he understands the concept. He understands, like, okay, he's playing you can tell he's visualizing himself going through all the rules. When it's clear, he's good. When it's not, he nails it, and then, takes it right to the field. So, it's pretty high.
That is high praise from probably one of the smartest coaches in the league. And, the questions that he asks, the fact that he's able to take it onto the field, that he gets right to the core of a schematic or strategic thing, and that the coaches are able to talk to him about it in that way. I think of Devon Witherspoon as Pete Carroll's last gift to the Seahawks. It was Pete Carroll when Devon Witherspoon made a 30 visit to the Seahawks, who sat down with Spoon and had him look through film and asked him questions about, what did you see here when you made that play? And it was Pete Carroll's unique extended tenure in the league, working across multiple generations and multiple great players on defense, from Troy Polamalu and beyond, Joey Browner back in the 80s with the Vikings. He's had Ronnie Lott. He's had so much exposure to great secondary players. And Pete heard things in that conversation with Devon Witherspoon that he really just hadn't heard since Troy Polamalu. and just an instinct that he was able to detect that I'm not convinced that everybody else in the NFL would have known and would have been willing to spend a 5th pick in the draft on. Maybe it would have happened either way, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that Pete Carroll deserves a big chunk of credit for signing off on and maybe even recommending that this is the guy that they pick with that 5th selection. This could be one of the best defensive players in football for the next decade. We're going to find out. He's got a lot to prove, but there's a lot of signs that indicate that could be the case. All right, a couple more comments from Mike Macdonald before I take your questions. This is a comment about Leslie Frazier and what he thinks, what he adds to the team.
I think you're just kind of reemphasizing the things we've talked about, but I love Leslie Frazier. I mean, and there's a lot of people in this world, especially football world, that love that man, and his reputation is well earned. You know, a man of faith, a man of character, integrity, a leader, servant leader, elite communicator. I always go back to that, but he's just got a way of kind of getting people's guard down when he wants to give them a message, and I really appreciate that about him. But trust him with 100% all the time, and I'm really happy he's a Seahawk.
That's pretty cool, honestly, to hear about Leslie Frazier. You can see and hear how much respect Mike Macdonald has for him and the safety net that he provides in being here. I mean, I think he's got a confidant. I think he's got a mentor. You know, it's really cool. And as someone who also has worked, you know, for many years myself as a leader, manager, all that kind of stuff. When I heard the word or the phrase servant leader pop up there, and he talked about him being an elite communicator as well. But if you're not familiar with the concept of servant leadership, the fact that Mike Macdonald is of note. Servant leadership is a concept where you don't lead by dictating to people what to do based off of what you want to happen and why you need it. It's not necessarily a command and control style of leadership. It is the belief that your job as a leader is to serve the people that you lead and to actually give them everything they need to succeed. That you are constantly focusing on how you can do something for your people as opposed to what your people can do for you. And it's certainly a style of leadership I have a lot of respect for. And I don't think it's someone's always that, or there's some other kind of leader. There's times you need to be a command and control leader. Like, it's just, any parent out there can tell you there's times where you need to do things to just tell your kid to do it. And there's other times where you've got to help them figure out how to do it themselves and help them do it. So it is noteworthy to me, at least, that he talked about servant leadership there. And you also heard him just really marvel at the type of communicator that Leslie Frazier is. And set aside for a second whether or not Mike Macdonald currently is an elite communicator, the fact that he respects somebody who is, and that he's got that person as a model to learn from and pick up hints and clues and watch how he does it, I think is only good news and is only going to help him as he continues to grow as a head coach. Last bit of sound here from Mike Macdonald that I wanted to play was like, what's the implications of being a defensive head coach? Do you kind of, you know, find yourself cheering more for the defense when they do things? And I liked what Mike Macdonald had to say here.
I mean, you know me, like you see me, I'm not like, I'm just, hey, all right, like that was a good play. You know, let's go to the next one. Let's not get too crazy out there, but it's easier to go back on tape and say, okay, well, this is what happened, or we could have made a better decision with the ball, or just, you know, there's some plays where, you know, interceptions happen, defensive guys make a great play, and, you know, you kind of tip your cap and move on. So I think you got a mixture of those today. But again, it's like, you if it's I know this sounds weird, but if it's like a sweetly executed play, I'm like, that's what gets me going at this point in time. You're like, okay, that was great. We had great communication. We leveraged the ball. Rush lanes look good. Quarterback ball is out on time. Like, okay, that's a good play for the Seahawks. So those are the plays we're chasing right now.
That last quote is gold. I love it. And that is an absolute process over results mindset where Mike Macdonald's like, okay, you're talking about leverage the ball. That means that the secondary players or the coverage players are on the right side of the offensive player, that they're pushing them to the right place based off of what the coverage call was, that the pass rush lanes, people were in the right lanes, the right spacing. He talks about offensively that they get the ball out on time. He's basically just talking about, is it executed as expected? Are people doing their jobs properly? And if they do, then he's like, sweet, that is a Seahawks play. That's what we're chasing right now. And I love that from Mike Macdonald. And I think that it is, again, a very good sign of leadership, of coaching, of development, and of the right mindset of, okay, do your jobs well. I care more about that than you getting, jumping out of your rush lane to make a play and you make it. But now you've exposed us because you're going to get that one play, but 5 other plays are going to go the wrong way because you're freelancing. And I think it's great to hear. I think it's great to hear. So that was a lot of sound from Mike Macdonald. A bunch of other guys spoke yesterday. I'm not going to go over their sound today. I will go over some of it tomorrow and Saturday and so forth. So we've got, coming up, we'll have sound from Devon Witherspoon. I've got sound from Leonard Williams and a bunch of other guys. JSN. There's sound I've got from Byron Murphy and Mike Morris. So we'll go over all of that on other days. We certainly have enough time to stretch this out a little bit. We don't have to listen to it all in one sitting. And I know that people are excited to watch the latest episode of Before the Noise. So as I offered before we go, I said if any club level or suite level YouTube members had questions, I would be happy to take those. I see a question here from Lawrence Richardson, who is a YouTube member. Thank you for joining, Lawrence. Appreciate the support. He says, do you think the Seahawks have a greater than 1.3% chance to win the Super Bowl this year? If so, 75-1 is looking like a great bet. Lawrence, I don't think they have a greater than 1.3% chance. I think that's probably roughly accurate. I do think that they have a significantly better chance to go over 7.5 wins, which is the current betting odds for the Seahawks on win total. But as far as Super Bowl, nah, not yet. I think that's burning money, but if you want to go for it, I'm not gonna argue with you. All right. Bradley asks, sorry, just dropping in. Did you see that Draymond Jones had his contract restructured? Yes, went over that. So hopefully you heard my comments on that. Got a comment here from Hawks fan Matt. Man, I like every piece of Tyrese Knight news has been positive so far, which is nice. I wouldn't say every piece has been positive, but it has been almost like he's making some plays, which is good, and appreciate that. I see the person who made the comment about the video being too long was joking, so thank you for clarifying. Bradley says that a linebacker trade is inbound. Yeah, I would go back, if you haven't already, watch my video on linebacker options for the Seahawks. I listed a bunch of them, including free agents and players that they could trade for. I doubt they'll do any of these trades right now, but they could show up later in camp. Hawks fan Matt Man says, don't let Rob Staten hear about the Seahawks signing Adams back. Yeah, it will be tough news for a lot of people if Jamal Adams is back. I will just say, if he's back, you got to be comparing him to John Radigan and Patrick O'Connell. You got to be comparing him to linebackers and not safeties. And you got to be comparing him to, a guy that hopefully has healed up, a full offseason of strength and conditioning as opposed to rehab, hopefully, and being a rotational player. I don't know that I doubt he would even be a starting player in this scenario, but that can allow a lot of things potentially to happen. So, Michael Fawcett here says, I thought of a potential episode idea comparing Waldron to Grubb as far as tendencies. 1st and 10, 3rd and short. Very broad idea, but throwing it out. I appreciate it. Yeah, you guys should always feel free to throw out episode ideas. I've got a pretty endless supply that just run through my head, but I love hearing from you guys. And certainly over the next 6 weeks, there will be a need for some creative thought about what kind of content we're going to cover. So I will file that away. I appreciate that, Michael. And let's see. Here is a question from Hawks fan Matt Man. Any concern about the offense throwing 6 picks, or is the defense typically ahead of the offense at this point? Well, look at it this way. I mean, it was just last week we were talking about JSN catching, depending on who you ask, 5, 6, 7, 8 touchdowns in one practice when they were doing red zone drills. So I believe that it is good news when you have good play on any part of your team. And a lot of these interceptions that we even talked about from yesterday sounds kind of like some pretty good plays in some cases. You've got Patrick O'Connell tipping a ball and Rayshon Jenkins diving. That those sound like tight window plays that the defense made a great play on. Tyrese Knight showing blitz, dropping into a spot that the offense didn't expect. That sounds like good execution. And, the offense is going to learn from that. So I think those are situations where, the offense is going to have film to watch now. They're going to have things that they can analyze and adjust to. And that's going to make them better when they face other teams that are employing some of these tactics. Some of the things like the DK Metcalf, the Reek Woolen interception when he's guarding DK Metcalf sounds like a miscommunication. That's a little less impressive by the defense and a little less encouraging of something on offense, but it certainly is something that you're going to have teaching tape from and come back to. So I think I feel the same way. I pay attention to that. All the years I've gone to training camp, I watch like 1v1 pass rush drills is probably the place you can learn the most in training camp. And there are days where I'm like, wow, the defense is just getting after them. And maybe not even just days. There's whole training camps where I'm like, wow, we're going to have a really good pass rush. And then you get to a preseason game and you get to the regular season game. You're like, oh no, we just have really shitty offensive linemen. And so you don't necessarily always want one side of the ball to be dominating the other side of the ball. But I've tried to learn over the years when I watch with my own eyes where I think a player is making a great play versus where I think, there's just maybe a void of talent that's allowing other players to look better than they really are. So I won't be able to tell you till I get my eyes on it. And hopefully I'll be able to do that during training camp this year. All right, folks, those were all the questions. I appreciate those. You can join as a YouTube member as well. The link is in the description of the video. You should be able to join. And bonus for suite level members right now, I am adding content for while I am out next week, starting next Friday. And it is there for people that are suite level members. They can watch it right now. Everybody else, it will be kind of premiered each day that I'm gone. So we've got an episode that I just recorded yesterday that is all of my favorite plays from the Seahawks secondary last year. Devon Witherspoon, Trey Brown, Julian Love. So some great highlights, fun to look back at those. Sweet level fans, YouTube members can watch it now. Everyone else, you'll be able to see it next Sunday. Not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I'll be recording other content that will be members only first, and then will be released to the general public. So great time to join up as a YouTube member, especially as a suite level member. And then also join as a patron member, because at patreon.com/hawkblogger, I will post the audio version of this pod momentarily, and you get access to the Slack channel where the conversations just keep going about the Seahawks and about the Mariners and a bunch of other stuff. So highly recommend you check that out. Appreciate all the support through the dog days of this NFL offseason. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HawkBlogger. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care.